Welcome to Women in Leadership Talk, where you'll hear from successful women who are empowering other women with their stories of adversity, resiliency, and success. And here is your host, Vicki Bradley, founder and CEO of Women in Leadership Empowered.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Thanks so much for chiming in today. We're excited to have you here listening to another wonderful guest that is joining us. And I'd love to welcome Rannie Alfers. Rannie, thanks for joining us today.
Vicki, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you, and we have lots of great things to talk about today. But I also want to thank our audience for chiming in. And, again, I know I always say this, but if this episode resonates with you, please do share it. Let us know how we're doing. It helps us stay alive in the podcast world. And we want to continue to bring you these awesome, awesome guests. So let me tell you a little bit about Rannie. She is an accomplished entrepreneur with 19 years of experience in the insurance industry. She's built and actively owns a successful all lines insurance agency in Texas, leading a team recognized for excellence in this Texas market. Her passion for supporting women-owned businesses has grown since starting her first business when she was in college. Through her company, EMR Equity, she invests in women founders, creators, and owners. Following an acquisition, Rani also serves as the CEO of EMK Skincare. Very diverse background. She's into all kinds of stuff. She's originally from Louisiana, but she now calls Dallas her home, Dallas, Texas. And locally, she is known as the professional relationship builder. She also has a phenomenal podcast called Working Women Mentor, where her guests will share experiences, inviting listeners to be inspired by mentor moments. And I think that's awesome. And I'm fortunate enough, I get to be on her podcast later this year. So I'm excited to be joining Rannie in her adventures. But let's jump in. Rannie, welcome again. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. I love it. You're so kind.
Well, you're most welcome. And, when I saw your profile, I was like, okay, this is a woman who is a multi-thinker, multitasker, always looking at, how can you serve? What are the opportunities? So what has led you on the path of, serving in so many different ways?
Hey, it's a great question. I always tell people when they say, what do you do? I'm like, I just work a lot. Like, that's what I do. I just work all the time. But really, I like to think about, I work on things that I love and enjoy. And where my path has led me is to, like you said, serve, to enjoy what I'm working on, to find value in what I do every day, to surround myself with these wonderful people that are growing with me, because it's not just me growing throughout my professional history, right? It's my team, it's my network, it's my, my people. And so Vicki, I've always loved to create and to work, and I can see where there's opportunity in some cases, and it's irresistible. And so, yes, it does lead me down several different paths, but I do believe that there's, that curiosity and that skill set. That there's a lot of consistency in what we do. I think it's just women, we're multi-talented. We can do so much. So much. And, why limit it to this one thing when we're usually doing so many things, but we never talk about them, right? So I think, that's why I'm here, right? I mean, it's where it's coming from.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I love that you just said that, because it's so true. We wear so many hats, and you can do multiple things. You just have to find your rhythm, right? And find the mechanisms that work for you. And so what I heard you saying there was the power of saying yes to opportunity and staying curious with, where could this lead me? And who am I going to connect with?
Exactly. And I think often it's like we're afraid sometimes to say yes, or, I have the fear as well with things. And when taking that next leap or that next step, I mean, we all do, but it's making that choice, being able to make a decision and being able to go down a path. And if it doesn't work, then make a different decision.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that kind of, I'll segue into, you have this reputation for being a relationship builder. And so I'd love to hear more about that and why. I mean, I talk to a lot of not just women, but a lot of women who networking and relationship building is not always their favorite thing to do. So
Hmm.
tell us why this is such a passion for you.
I look at relationship building a bit different than like the traditional networking model, if you will.
Hmm.
I think that, the relationship piece is very personal to me. It's less of a strategy and more of a foundation of who I am.
Hmm.
I believe, people want to be seen. I like to understand the person in front of me. I like to know where they're coming from. I think a lot actually about the people in front of me and in my life because we all come from a different background and a different day. We wake up differently, that from
Very
8
true.
a.m. to noon. I mean, something different happened in your day today, Vicki, than mine. And so, I like to think about all of those things when I'm approaching a relationship and when I'm approaching a conversation. And that's the foundation of it. And then when we think about networking, if you will, totally different, totally different path, because I don't feel like I always network with the people I have a relationship with. But I do
Okay.
think if we could drop the term networking from our
Mm.
vocabulary for a minute when we're trying to meet new people, it would be a little bit easier for all of us because that
Hmm.
it doesn't that word just make you think like, oh, okay, I've got to have my elevator speech, I've got to have like five interesting things to talk about. Um, I think when we get so worried about it, and so when we're trying to go approach building that people, building your circle, that if we can just focus on one person in front of you, or the ideal person that you want
Mm.
in front of you, and what that conversation looks like. And just be really intentional because it's not
Hmm.
about the number of people we have around us. It's about the person we have around us. So getting back to the basics of just, human interaction.
Mm.
It's just getting together.
Well, I love that. And I happen to be a big connector
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And what you just shared there, that's how I try to differentiate is networking. It shouldn't be transactional. It should be the human connection, right?
Yes.
And you're not going to mesh with every person you meet,
No.
and that's okay, but it's not going into that relationship as a transaction. What can you do for me? And
Yeah.
I really don't like that. I prefer when you're building, a connection with somebody that's genuine and authentic, and they do feel seen, heard, valued.
Exactly. Even when you think about, I was working with a potential designer that we were going to hire recently, and I remember during that meeting, this is so, she had an agenda the whole meeting. Like you could just feel it. She tried to shift our direction to her agenda. I mean, even though we said several times, and we ended up not hiring her, and it came down to that what you just said is that
Mm-hmm.
she didn't listen, she didn't see us.
Mm-hmm.
It was about an agenda, and I think that's the mistake people go into when it's business, when it's personal. You know, drop the agenda. Find
Yeah.
someone you really like and you really want to work with, and you really just genuinely think, man, this is a good person. Like I
Yeah.
think, and also I think it's not about what's in this for me today. What's in this for you long term?
Yeah.
What's in this for you big picture? And that is where you can start dropping that transaction feel from
Yeah.
your relationships.
Yeah. Any stories, Randy? Like what's been your favorite like connection that you've made that it might have been unusual or, this person becomes a big part of your life?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I I'm going to bring up my podcast, not to promote my podcast, but
No,
it's
that's okay.
almost
You
like
can.
no, but it's almost the reason I started that
Mm,
because I
likewise.
love, yes, I so enjoy. I've had so many great conversations and met so many interesting people over the years, traveling by myself, traveling solo, and having these memorable, insightful conversations where you don't get that sometimes with people, actually. You don't get that with someone you're going into this idea of, hey, let's network. Everybody's a little guarded in that
Yeah, very
situation.
true.
You go into it and you sit down at a wonderful restaurant at the bar and you're having dinner or a coffee shop and or on a train or a plane, and it's an open, honest, wonderful conversation. And so those stand out, Vicki, in my life. I've met a dear friend in Dallas literally at a restaurant, and he is someone who is a mentor to me, all the time. I
Love
mean,
that.
all the time. And he's in his 70s, late 70s, and I just love him to death. And that was a friendship from, just like, I think that we were talking about recommending landscapers or
Oh,
something,
wow.
and
Okay.
from that, we just have this great connection. And I just, you never know where these relationships
Yeah.
come from. They don't have to come from something so static, right?
Yeah.
They can organically be all around you. You just have to open your eyes and your mouth and be friendly enough to engage these conversations.
Yeah, no, I so agree with you. And that's the magic, right? Like when it's so unexpected, and then all of a sudden you meet this person who has such an influence on your life.
Oh,
And that I know, right? That is so cool. I there's two situations that really stand out for me where one of my dearest friends for the last 20 some years, we met in the hospital. We both ended up in the hospital, and people are like, really? That's how you guys met? And we travel together all the time, like just great friends, have so much in common.
I love it.
And another one, like you with the restaurant, was on an airplane. I
Yes.
met this man, and he ended up becoming such a mentor to me, older, and
Yep.
just such a
So full
great,
of wisdom and kind, I'm
yeah, and such
sure.
a great
Yeah.
friend. So you just never know. You never
You
know
never know.
where those connections are going to come from. So
It's
I
like,
love
oh,
that.
keep your eyes open, everyone. Just keep your eyes open, be open to it. Not everyone has the agenda, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't, you'll find the people that don't.
Yeah. Well, and I love that example that you shared, because if you're listening to our podcast, think about when somebody comes to you with an agenda, how does it make you feel?
Oh, it did
Right?
not make
It's
me feel good.
icky.
Oh, it was in fact, I shared that feedback with our contractor because they had made the introduction,
Mhm.
and then we met some other people, and I said, you know what, I explained why I liked the person we liked,
Mhm.
why we didn't even have to explain why we didn't like the person we liked,
Mhm.
right? Didn't even need to go there. I
Mhm.
explained why we made the hiring decision of the one we did.
Mhm.
And it I think when you define those characteristics and whatever they are for you, then
Mhm.
that becomes your filter for everyone, right? Hey, they don't have an agenda. Hey, very detailed, very professional, very personable. You start listing amount of what you love about someone, and you'd be surprised. It probably is a great profile of most other people in your life.
Yeah. It's so true. So true. And I love that. And that's important for those listening, like thinking about, where are you making your connections? Are you open? Right? Or are we on that autopilot?
Number one, yes, number one is it, because I think it's hard as I don't know about you, Vicky, but like as we get older, like as we're in different seasons of our life, we're working
Yes.
really hard. I've got a 13-year-old, I have a very full life, and it is, you get into this mentality of it's hard to keep the friendships you have sometimes. And so then you're like, well, how could I possibly be open to more people? I can't return my girlfriend's call and to have lunch or happy hour next week, and
Yeah.
it's like if you just keep an open mind about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Love that. And that's great, great advice. Staying open to it.
Yes.
So I want to talk a little bit about, you talked about your journey. We talked about your podcast. Like you're doing all kinds of things. You're investing in women from a angel investor, from a financial perspective. You've running this insurance company, but why why these mentor moments? Like what inspired you to go on this journey of podcasting?
Yeah, thanks for asking that because, this journey started a few years ago, and I had the idea of the podcast, and it was from meeting these wonderful people traveling and just in these random places. And I valued those small mentor moments,
Mm.
those very micro moments of advice and
Hmm.
of wisdom and of how it changed their direction and how they could really teach on it, if you will. And I just kind of coined this mentor moment because again, it's not a full blown professional mentor relationship, or it's nothing I was seeking, or it's just something right there in front of you. And that idea was in my mind of how could more women share their mentor moments, because I have been in, have had situations where women weren't actually that open to sharing how to help me, or
Likewise.
they
Yes.
they were hoping to take me down, perhaps. I don't know. There's a lot of, and I don't know, I can't speak for them, but it didn't feel good. How about that?
Yeah.
And I don't think it feels good to anyone when it happens. And I wanted to bring a more positive voice to women, to mentorship, and to showing up and supporting each other in a positive way. And that's where it began. That's where it came from, Vicki. And I think starting the podcast was a whole different thing. As you know, it's a lot of work, and it's a
Mhm.
lot of time, personal time. You're not compensated for it. You're not doing it for monetary reasons. You are doing it for a passion, an impact, and it's very fulfilling. I'm sure you probably feel the same way, don't you? Oh,
Absolutely.
I mean, that's why we keep doing it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I can't tell you how much everybody, I hang up with a guest and I'm like, I love them. I they're
Likewise.
yeah,
Like I'd like to get everybody that's been on the podcast in a room together. Could you imagine
yes.
that? Like how
How fun.
fantastic would that be?
Totally agree. Let me know. I'll fly up whenever you have that room put together, Vicky. I'll be there.
I seriously, I think about that, and you think about the collective wisdom, right? Like it's so beautiful, and the stories that are shared, and like sometimes you have to turn people away, not because you want to, but you just sometimes you can't get everybody on, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. We in fact we have a wait list right now. I would say we're getting about 25 or so applicants a week.
Yeah.
I mean, coming in, and we're vetting, we're getting back to everyone. But we only have so many episodes in a season. I only have so much time,
Yeah.
so it's so wonderful though that people are reaching out and saying, "Hey, I
Mhm.
really love what you're doing. I would love to share my mentor moment." And that is the coolest thing ever to me. So that just makes me so happy.
Likewise, I love that. So I want to talk a little bit about the mentor moments, because when you were saying that earlier, something that strikes me is that often it's kind of like the networking. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It,
Mm-hmm.
it people will sometimes think that mentorship is transactional,
Yeah.
and it's not. It's the same principles as we were discussing with how you build relationships, how you're connecting. That's what you're doing, but you're sharing your wisdom, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there doesn't always have to be an agenda. And your mentee can teach you as much as you're teaching them in that moment.
Oh, yes, they can. They absolutely can. I think that's such a great point. I mean, talking with so many women about, I mean, I've had 100+ conversations probably at this point about how they view mentorship and what it's meant to
Mm.
them. And what I love a lot about this. But one thing I notice is that while we are a women-centric podcast, so many of these early mentors in women's life have been men. And I
Hmm.
think that's such a positive thing because, as you know, I mean, this isn't a male versus female thing
Not at
at
all.
all, but it is, there are real life examples in our workplace where there have been, differences. And I love that, there are these strong, kind men in our professional lives and our personal
Mhm.
lives that are helping us
Mhm.
evolve and giving us an impact. It's not only women, right? And that's number one. That's a very, it's a trend. Very high percentage of men have helped women in a way that you can't even
Yeah.
describe. I think, secondly, most people will tell you that either their mentor, they never had one, which I did not. I really grew up thinking, what in the world? I thought it was somebody you had to hire, or where is this person? Who is this? Until you realize it's a collective, set of conversations you've had. It's small pieces, right? But early on, I didn't know that. And I don't think a lot of people do. So they say either I did not have one, or they think about their parents. And I've had a lot of moms as role models for women, and so it's interesting to see where and how people define mentorship in their own life. And then also thinking about if you're listening and if you have children, or if you have a team around you or just your friends, how do you pass that along to others? How do I help my son understand what it means? How do I get him into that? Like he was meeting with his advisor and he goes, is that like my mentor? Because he hears me talk about mentorship, right? And I was like, yeah, 100%. Like I want him thinking that way. So he doesn't feel transactional about it when he's older.
Yeah. And that's such an important, I think, understanding, especially as our young people are emerging, because I hear this a lot. Like if I'm speaking at conferences, people will often ask, they'll say, oh, will you mentor me? And it's like, well, I am right now. Right. Because they think it has to be separate. It has to be, so I love what you talked about with those micro moments and how do you take those and what do you do with those moments when you pick it up and you go, I remember years ago, I had a mentor. We didn't have a formalized mentorship, but he said to me, I was leaving a company that I was working for, and I also had to leave a board that I was sitting on. And he looked at me and he goes, Vicki, if you are out of sight, you're out of mind. And Rannie, that stuck with me like my entire career. I am always out of sight, out of mind. Like, how do you stay visible? Keep those connections alive, right? And when I'm coaching women, when they may be exiting somewhere, it's very much about how do you stay connected? How do you
how
stay
and where?
visible?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's almost like during COVID and pandemic when the work from home population was rising, and that was a real important topic to remind women of, because they said, hey, if the studies show working from home versus the folks in the office when when everyone started returning to work, that the studies show there's a difference in growth. There's a difference in promotion. There's a difference in why, for exactly what you just said. You're not as visible. You're not seen. In fact, you could even have some stigma wrapped around you by some people as, they're not as hardworking, right? They don't even want to come to the office. Yeah. And that's none of those things, there's plenty of people in the office that are not hardworking. I assure you, there are plenty of people out there in an office. So, but yes, I mean, it's the scene thing though, it's such a great lesson.
Yeah. And I'll just tag on to that a little bit because that came up for me as well during COVID.
Did it?
Yeah. Like where lots of people would say, Vicki, I'm having, my boss is not recognizing me, we're not having conversations. And to your point, it's about how you have to be super intentional. So if you are working remotely, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But there is that intent of how do you stay connected to your boss? How does your boss know what your intentions are, right? Talking about, if you're looking for a promotion, talking about what do you see that I need to improve on? What can I be doing that helps me go to that next level? Having those live conversations so that it becomes very real and in their mind that, okay, Rannie or Vicki is, like they're wanting to grow in their careers. And those are very important conversations to have. And to your point, where, like, even if you work remotely, what conferences are you going to?
Right.
Are you part of a community? Right. So
you're out for lunch. I mean, yes.
Exactly. And you're a community builder, right? So you've built this community in Texas. So maybe talk about you moved from Louisiana to Texas. How did you start to build that community?
Yeah, that is a great question. I was young, and I started with the skills that I had from a company that I was managing at the time. So I'll give you an example. So I was in college. I opened a coffee shop while I was there in Louisiana. Loved that. I sold the coffee shop, and I became a general manager, an operating general manager of a wholesale liquor company in Louisiana. And so we were based on distribution to casinos. And very interesting, very young. I have no idea what I was thinking at the time, did not know what I was doing, learning as fast as I could. But the skill set that I learned to be able to be this really young person in this beverage industry and work with people much older and in an industry, I'm very unfamiliar with, was about entertaining. It was about
Mm.
like a really like taking out for dinner, going to lunch, bringing gifts. That's my love language. I love gifts and time.
Aw.
Gifts and time. I love them all, by the way, but gifts and time. And so I used those skills that I had. So very successful in that industry. And then when I moved to Texas, I wanted to start my own company, started the insurance agency, and it's hard to make money in insurance without selling anything to someone. I didn't know anyone, and I had to start from scratch. And
Mm.
I used my skill set, Vicki. I used my gifts and my time love language, and I poured it on as many people as I could. I took them to lunch, I took them to dinner. Like, I feel like if I can't sit down and have a meal with you, I probably don't enjoy you very much.
That's a
I
good
mean, I
way.
really, yes. And I found people that I just wanted to work with that way.
Yeah.
You start ruling people out. You start figuring out,
Who's my
what,
people?
who are my people, or who's in this for a transaction,
Yeah.
right? And, today in this, at this stage in my career, and I started this probably 15 years ago, quite frankly, is I realized really quickly there's a lot of people that want to go to lunch with you for a free lunch. I'm
Mhm.
like, really? People do that? Like, can't you buy your own lunch? Why? There are people who are in it for some transactional piece,
Mm.
and that it's like back to what we said earlier, it doesn't feel good. So
Yeah.
I really started with the skills that I had, and I would encourage anyone listening to figure out what you're good at and how you can use those. If it's, if you're in like knitting, where can you join a knitting community, or what can you
Mhm.
knit and bring to a community, or what can you donate, or things like that. Can you host a class that's women in knitting? Just thinking about creative ways to still um, do what you're good at, and
Mhm.
and you'll find the people that you love.
Love that. Love that. That's awesome. So you're finding that common ground.
Mhm.
Beautiful.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I'm just watching our time a little bit. So what's next for you? Like you've already done a lot. So what's going to be next for Randy in the next 5 years?
I really am focused on expansion of the companies that I have right now. I'm focused on making sure that my daily rhythms are in check with where I
Mm,
am mentally. I'm making sure that in 5 years, my son will be going to college. I mean, life will look a little different for me at
mhm.
that point. We travel a lot and want to see the world, Vicky. So I
Nice.
think it's, expanding my company over the next 5 years is a priority, and spending as much quality time with my son before he leaves for school
Mm.
is right up there, with a high personal priority, obviously. And I have an idea in my mind brewing for another company, and
Oh, look
yes,
at
I
you.
do. I'm not gonna, but I've
Visionary.
I've got something brewing. We'll see where time allows. But I also, the one thing that I didn't get to mention, and I wanted to, is based on the podcast and based on my struggles with it getting started, is I hope that I can help a lot of women through the course that we have that is about being able to start a podcast using our playbook and our guide, doing it with AI, doing it quick, saving
Mm,
yourself a lot of time and money. I hope that I can
and
help a lot of
headache.
women and a headache. Oh my gosh. I hope I can help a lot of women start that if that's what they want, and make it easy for them so they can, give attention to their family. Then there's
Mm,
go to the gym, make a little bit of time for that, travel, work. We've got so much we all want to do in life, right?
yeah, it's true. It's so true.
Yes. It's a big
So
world out there, Vicki.
exactly, exactly. And I love how diverse all of your businesses are, right? So that tells me a lot about you and how your brain's wired. You don't like to get bored.
I don't. And when I acquired this skincare company, I think everyone looked at me like I was like, "What in the world? You're in insurance. What do you know about skincare?" And I'm like, "Well, we have a wonderful lab that knows about, yeah, like you don't have to know everything about everything, but you like I said
Mm,
earlier, you have to find those common elements and skill sets that you have and find a vehicle to apply them to.
yeah,
And I, could I get into a lab and design a product on my own? Absolutely not. Can we do anything on our own? I mean, we need help. We need that, we need people who know what they're doing. And so I think it's just the diversity. There's a lot of diversity in what I do, but there's
mm.
more commonality, Vicki, based on what I do with the companies every day.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So that audience is something to sit and reflect on,
Mm.
right? Like sometimes we make it more complex, more hard than it needs to be, or we'll get in our own heads. And so think about that. There's a lot more commonalities than you think. Yeah, love
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
So
It's
Rannie,
like when you're,
how,
mhm.
oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Please. No, I was just thinking, like, when you're traveling in your different cultures, and I always tell my son, I say, see, Pete, we have more in common than we have in different. No matter the location, the
That's true.
language, even the financial, background, like nothing. We all have way more in common than we think,
Yeah.
as humans, and so we just have to remember that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's a great way to wrap us up. I love that. So how can people find you? So you have the Working Women Mentor podcast,
Hmm.
and where can they find Ranny if they have more questions or they want to learn about how to set up a podcast, your course that you do?
Thank you. Thank you. Find us at workingwomenmentor.com. You can learn about our course, our podcast. You can connect with me directly on Instagram as well. So just find me, reach out. I love hearing from people. I'd be happy to respond, to help, to just say hello, jump on a Zoom, anything. I really enjoy wonderful connections. And Vicki, thank you so much for having me on your podcast today. This has been fun. I
Oh,
love
my
listening to
pleasure.
your episodes. Like, you're rocking it. You're rocking it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ranny. And thank you for being here and sharing your expertise. This is a great conversation. When we're talking about connections and relationships, that's one of my favorite topics. So that was beautiful. So thank you for
Good.
that.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thanks
Well, and
again.
our audience, thank you for showing up today. Thank you for taking time to, listen to our conversation. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. Like, how are you utilizing your connections? What are you doing? Are you seeing it as a transaction? Are you seeing it as a relationship? And Randy said something that's super important. It's not a short term one time. It can be a long-term relationship. We both gave you examples of relationships we've had. So just think about that. How are you connecting? And as our gift to you, if you visit the willempowered.com website, you can go on and take our free leadership quiz. And that gives you a lot of insight as to how you're showing up in the world. So, and if you have comments or questions or you want to talk about that, feel free to reach out. You can reach me at Vicki@willempowered.com, and I'd be happy to chat with you. So thank you everyone for being here. Randy, thank you again. Enjoy your
Thank
travels that you're
you. Yes.
doing. Yes. And everyone, will see you on the next Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Take care, everybody.
I
Thank you for joining us for WIL Talk, sponsored by Women in Leadership Empowered. To learn more about our programs, please visit www.willempowered.com. We look forward to seeing you in our community.